Well, happy Monday, everyone. Today is Monday, October 7th, 2019, and this is your HR moment with Angela Hooper-Menifield of Menifield Associates, LLC. I hope you guys had a great weekend. It was very productive for us. We had our second session of teaching the SHRM certification course for those seeking to get a SCP, which is a Senior Certified Professional, or a CP, Certified Professional certification with SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management. Things are going very well over there at St. Joseph's College. So I try to, as I've mentioned before, take the questions that people have, be it email or in person, and use those to leverage the content that I deliver. Because again, I can't know what it is you need to know or want to know if I'm not hearing from you directly. And so an issue that was a result of having a conversation about attendance. And so we can definitely go through our attendance series, but a question that I just felt took priority was to understand, how do you navigate paperwork and forms or medical documents that employees may give you to justify their absences or their attendance. Sometimes it's based on OWCP or a reasonable accommodation. And we've talked a little bit about a reasonable accommodations. But at the end of the day, the question is, how do we handle those forms? Where are they filed? So first, let me just say, any good supervisor wants to have documentation about anything, whether that's, again, reasonable accommodation, an extended absence, and or sometimes we have to put employees on leave restriction. And so as a result of that restriction, we need their documentation to justify the absence that they have incurred post being placed on restriction. So what do you do with those documents? Oftentimes what happens is a person will bring in a sick note, a doctor's excuse, or a medical documentation supporting their limitations, what they can or cannot do, or their schedule. And what we will do sometimes as supervisors is give those notes to the timekeepers. We should not be doing that. A timekeeper is not a person that's considered appropriate or a need to know when it comes to medical documentation. So as the supervisor, we would take those notes and we should secure them in a locked location. Because again, this qualifies and classifies SPII, personally identifiable information. And so we have to ensure that we secure these documents. Excuse me. Now you may be wondering, well, if I don't give it to the timekeeper, how will they know how to denote the person's time? You can tell them. As in, employees are often required to complete a leave slip, requests to be out, LWOP, leave without permission, annual leave, vacation time. Excuse me. And so as a result of that, what happens is we either approve or don't approve the leave slip. That's what goes to the timekeeper. They need to have documentation that this leave has been approved or not. But do they need to know why employee X or Y is not at work? Of course not. It has nothing to do with them. Again, medical information should be handled on a need-to-know basis. So as the supervisor, I might need to know why my admin person or why one of my team members cannot come to work. The timekeeper doesn't need to know that. All the timekeeper needs to know is, how do I charge this time away from work? So is it annual leave, sick leave, leave without pay, AWOL, whatever the case may be. But the medical documentation is not, and I repeat, is not included in that. As such, medical documentation has no place in personnel files either. General files, attendance files, where we might be keeping TNAs, time and attendance documents, or things like that. These are PII, personally identifiable information. If you don't have some type of training or instructional materials for your team members to understand how to deal with these documents, I suggest you secure some. Again, as part of the Supervisory Academy and Symposium, we provide that type of guidance. and or instructions and training for people. But nonetheless, whether you get it from us or you get it elsewhere, I compel you to train those who have access to private information with the proper instructions and strategies. Equip them how to handle this information. But again, be perfectly clear. This does not, I repeat, does not belong in a standard time and attendance folder. We secure these documents, we keep them under lock and key. And again, only the supervisor and his or her designee has, or those with a need to know, should have access to this information. And that list should be very small, very, very small. Because again, all the rest of the team needs to know is person X is not coming to work. Person X needs to leave early. Person X is on light duty. But they don't need to know why. They don't need to know their medical information. That violates their privacy. So if you've been doing that, hey, I get it. You didn't know any better. But I compel you to cease from doing so and do so immediately. Figure out a constructive, orderly way to convey the information that the timekeeper needs in order to pay people, but separate the documents from those parameters. So again, we can talk a little bit more about, how to handle leave restrictions, what type of documents are needed for medical absences, as in a prognosis, diagnosis, things like that. But for right now, we are specifically speaking of where do we store those papers? Where do we store that information? In a locked file cabinet, separate from other personnel papers, separate from regular time and attendance. And again, it should be given access to only to the supervisor. So again, if you're handing these forms, these medical notes over to your admin staff and other people, I am imploring you to stop. They do not have a need to know why a person is sick, what the sickness is. All they need to know is how to charge the time. And that information is not crucial to knowing that, because they get their direction from you as the supervisor. You get to say time is approved or not. And if you approve the timekeeper then can proceed accordingly. But again, the medical notes, the documentation, those supporting documents are not to be maintained with regular time and attendance reports, personnel documents that other people may have access to. I'm sure this is confusing for some of you because you've done it like this for years, but cease from doing so. Separate these documents, keep them under lock and key, because what you don't want to see happen is someone is thumbing through the files looking for one thing and they stumble across a medical note that says I have some illness, some disease, and then they share it. Because guess what? People share things often out of concern. It's not that they're being malicious. So someone may see I have a medical condition and it's like, hey, did you know Angela had fill in the blank? Maybe they want to do something for me. But then when they come to me with that information, I'm offended because I'm trying to figure out, how do you know that? Well, you know it because my medical papers were not secured in a location that ensured my privacy. So that could subject us and the organization to violating people's rights. And again, we don't want to do that. And more times than not, when it happens, it's accidental. Nonetheless, do not put medical documentation in general files, attendance files, and even with the personnel papers. Again, supervisors, only those with a need to know, and under lock and key in a private location. So again, if you need more information or you want deeper training on this subject, I would love to have you come over and join us at our Supervisory Academy. Our official launch will begin in about a week. And so you'll have an opportunity to enroll yourself as an entrepreneur, business owner, supervisor, or enroll those on your team who need constant, steady support and guidance. We are certified and equipped to deliver that content because, again, our objective is to equip and build supervisors and teams. Thank you very much for your time today. This has been Angela Hooper-Menifield of Menifield Associates with your HR moment. Have an awesome day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.